Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Cloudbeds Live. My name is Paula. I'm a senior PR and partner marketing specialist at Cloudbeds and the host of today's show. In case this is your first time with us, we host live shows here on LinkedIn where I chat with renowned professionals about different topics in the hotel industry. It's always very fun, and I'm that lucky. All the episodes are recorded and can be found on our website, cloudbeds.com/videos. We've had amazing guests and great conversations so far, and today's episode is no exception, I'm sure. Today, we're going to talk about revenue management, the revenue management role. And our guest, as you can already see on the screen, is Thomas Finn. Tom is the founder and managing director at Edwards and Finn. Tom is also the host of ENF TV and revenue management commercial advisor at HOSPA. I know you have more titles, Tom. Please add them as you as you want. You have spent many years matching top talent with hospitality's biggest brands, and so you know exactly what the hotels want and what job seekers need to do to succeed. So I'm sure you are the perfect match for this episode. So welcome to the show, Tom. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Paula. It's great to share the screen with you again because this isn't the first time that we've done something like this. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for inviting me. I'm excited.
Thank you. Fortunately, I don't have any hot, spicy food to give you. I should have sent to your home
Oh
someday.
yeah,
Just a joke. You can explain better than I. But you have a show.
sure.
Oh, you did a show, right? That people would
Yes,
guess would. Why they would eat all the time, or if they how it goes?
it's beyond me. Honestly, it's beyond me. We actually have another one coming up very soon. So there you go. But I'm sure, yeah, as you say, I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point during this conversation.
That's awesome fun. Okay, so I see that people are starting to join us. I can see on the chat here. Thanks, everyone, and welcome again. Please let us know where you're watching the show. Write your comments and your questions in the chat box. We love interactions. We will do our very best to answer you. So I can see here Karina from Brazil. Hi, Karina. Thanks for joining us. We have someone watching us from Dubai. Thank you, too. Maria is watching from Argentina. Thanks everyone. Please keep sending us comments and questions. Like I said, I think the show is much more fun when you are with us. So please feel free. Don't be shy. So Tom, we're here today, as I mentioned, to talk about the revolution of revenue management role,
Yeah.
what it takes to stand out in today's job market, the skills a revenue management has to have. So, but let's start by talking about the recruitment market.
So.
How it is today? Are there many still job opportunities? Do you see any difference between now and maybe 2 years ago?
Yeah. Okay. So the recruitment landscape right now, again, it's so different for so many different agencies. So I do count Edwards and Finn very lucky in this aspect because consistently we do have a very steady and very a very good spectrum of roles from very junior all the way through to director level, VP level. Um, in terms of what the landscape looks like at the moment, it is a little bit up and down. It's a bit funny at the moment because we always joke within the business that I'll always say, look, it's going to pick up, guys. And then as soon as I say that, it either absolutely does or it doesn't at all. And everyone takes the mick out of me because I've said something and I'm supposed to be the sort of company guru with this stuff. And then as soon as I say, okay, well, we're going to go through a bit of a quiet period, it seems. And then all of a sudden, the next week, we get seven new jobs on with a brand new client or something. Um, so I think the recruitment market is such a fluid and unpredictable thing. I think a lot of people like to think that they can predict it, but they just can't. From a seasonality thing, even if I look at last year in the summer, for recruitment, generally speaking, summer everything slows down because of course lots of people, whether they're hiring managers or candidates, go on holiday, like a lot of people naturally do, school period and all this sort of stuff, or school holiday period. Um, Whereas last year, August was our busiest month ever since Edwards Finn Ltd has existed.
Wow.
So I think it's one of those where the way that we do things is we diversify our offering. So when I originally started, it was revenue management. Now, with revenue management jobs, if we just looked at our job board from a revenue management jobs perspective, I think we've got maybe 12, 13, 14, maybe. But what we started to do was expand out into the wider areas of commercial, such as sales, marketing, e-commerce, data analysis. Um, and this has helped us during those maybe downtimes in revenue management. There might be uptimes in these other areas of commercial.
Mhm.
And then, of course, hospitality tech. Hospitality tech recruitment for us has been a huge development within the business. It's not something that we originally set out to focus on, but due to our great relationships out in the industry with these tech clients, it just became such a great opportunity. And we see that that is already bolstering us in a period of time where a lot of people are actually maybe not doing so well in terms of job generation, whereas we seem to be quite stable, and that gives us a lot of confidence for the period of time we find ourselves in now, but also for the year ahead. We're hearing more about various investments going on in the hotel market, and
Mhm.
again, a lot of people I think are making judgments. I am very much someone that just let's just see what happens and let's be ready for any eventuality. So yeah, the market's looking good right now. Again, I can only speak for us. We've got plenty of jobs right now live, the majority of which are exclusive, and lots of candidates in interviews. So right now we're looking good, and I cannot complain. I've got to say, I feel very lucky, very lucky.
You're busy. You're busy.
Always.
Yeah, that's good to know. Let me see here. Kat, our friend Kat, is saying hello from West
Hello,
London.
Kat.
She was in the episode of the spicy food thing. That
Correct.
was,
She
yeah,
was. She was. She
yeah.
is a survivor.
We have here hello from Denmark as well. I love how, international we are, Tom. I really love
It's
hello from
amazing.
Barcelona. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing the power of internet, right? It's like
Yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
still like I'm so 80s. I'm still like fascinated by it. But yeah, so Tom, you're talking about how fortunately it's looking good the market. I do these live shows. We have our podcast as well, so we kind of interview a lot of professionals from
Yeah.
different part of the world. They are still hoteliers specifically, and they are still talking about labor shortage. It's still a
Yeah.
thing like globally, if
Yeah.
you know. So one thing that you were talking about, you start talking about, but I'm a bit curious, so I would like
Mm.
to do a follow up here. The process of recruitment. Can you like, summarize? Don't need to go into details, but is it now long? Is it harder? How it is?
Okay. So in terms of the labor shortage, absolutely that is still an issue. Within the more specialist commercial functions, we see less of it. So less of that particular challenge, just to obviously sort of touch on that point. So absolutely, we've seen labor shortages even in this space, but I'd say that's fairly sort of not dealt with, but it's fairly behind us now. But we still see the remnants of that from time to time, depending on the job and the environment and so on. In terms of the interview process, um, well, I suppose from start to finish, is that what you? So you want me to go through how we source a candidate through to them getting an offer? Is that sort of where we're looking
Yeah,
at?
yeah.
Okay.
Just like in general lines, if someone that is watching us, like hotelier, they would like to make to is looking for a job in this in the role inside of the
Yeah,
hotel industry. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. So if okay, let's start with there's two scenarios in this. So let's start with if a client, so a hiring manager or an employer, say a hotel brand or a hotel management company or a single property, if they were going to engage with an agency like myself, we would first off have a very open and honest discussion about what they're looking for. Um, Ultimately, why are they looking for this person? So it's all well and good. This is what we're looking for, but why are you looking for that? What's the
Okay.
actual reason? What's the sort of problem we're looking to solve, if you like?
Mhm.
So going through that sort of open discussion, going through a proper registration, understanding. it's all well and good looking at a job description, right? Everyone's got a very thorough
Yeah.
job description, or we'd like to think so anyway. Um, but it's about understanding, okay, but what about the character fit? What about the personality? Have you got quite an insular team currently? And if we bring somebody in that's quite bolshy and quite outspoken, is that going to rock the boat? That's
Mhm.
not going to be in the job description, right?
Yeah.
Or do we have really strong data analysis and revenue management skill set, but we don't have someone to be a real spokesperson for the team, or we don't have that influencing skill set? Again, that's not necessarily going to be in the job description. So
Yeah.
that's where we as an agency need to understand really what's the problem we're looking to solve through this recruitment process.
Mhm.
Um, Once we've completed that registration and obviously we agreed terms and everything else, the agency, so we would then go to market. We would start creating long lists from various different avenues, whether that be from our database, whether that be from uh, websites and sort of CV forums, or whether that be LinkedIn.
Mhm.
If that's where we'll sort of really deep dive into candidate generation. Following that, we will then go through a thorough process of shortlisting. So going from a very long list of candidates where we've mapped out maybe a certain region, we would then shortlist that way, way down. And then from that shortlist, we would then start contacting people, whether that be over the phone, if we've got contact details, if they're on our database, or whether that be a fresh contact through something like LinkedIn or via email.
Mhm.
Um, we would then ascertain as to whether they're interested in looking for a new role and so on and so forth. And then we'd go through a vetting process. So we would go through a registration with that candidate, understand their capabilities, their skill sets, get that CV, of course, and then
Mhm.
submit that candidate. Um, Once the candidate's been submitted, the client would then, of course, go through their review process, whatever that looks like for them, with either a HR representative or maybe it's directly with the hiring manager, again, depending on the business.
Yeah.
Um, they would then decide who they want to interview, and then we would step in again, where we would then start booking that interview in, preparing that candidate for interview. We've had a lot of comments and feedback, all very positive about our um, interview prepping process. So we go through, we take a lot of pride in that, to be totally honest with you, and we ensure that our candidates are properly and well, properly prepared and feeling incredibly confident in themselves. That's something that
Mhm.
again we pride ourselves on. Um, then it's a case of them going through the process, and if it's a revenue management role, I would say if we're talking in generous terms, it'd be 3-stage process. What
Okay.
that 3 stages is, the first stage is usually an initial preliminary conversation, usually over Teams or something like that, um, discussing again personality fit, giving an overview of the job. A candidate has the opportunity to be able to ask questions, and of course, the client has the opportunity to do the same thing.
Mhm.
The second stage is usually again a face to face, and there may be some sort of case study or presentation. Maybe a revenue manager's given a data set to work off, and they would create a short presentation that they would then get asked questions on and sort of have that discussion. Usually, unless again, this is usually a HR representative would be there. Competency based questions may be asked, just to ascertain how they deal with certain situations and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
The third stage is where there's usually maybe the well, again, depending on the business, but it might be the head of the team, it might be a chief commercial officer or something like this if it's a revenue role, um, and they may go through either a sort of even more thorough stage of a process, or generally that's more of a rubber stamp,
Mhm.
understanding all the feedback that's come from the first two interviews, and then going through the motions of, is this person going to be right for my team ultimately? And that's it. And then we go through the offer process. And that offer process, if we've done our job right, should be an incredibly smooth one where we've
Yeah.
already closed that candidate. And what I mean by closed is we've discussed the salary, we've discussed the wider package.
Yeah.
Candidate is happy with that. We've negotiated them into a point where they're ready to accept an offer. We
Mhm.
provide that information to the client to say, this is what the candidate is closed on, this is what they will accept if offered. And if all goes well, the client simply just says, right, that's within our budget. Let's make the offer and happy days, we're there. Um, so that again, there is complexities to this. I am
Yeah.
generalizing quite a lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
but that's generally speaking how the process works.
Yeah, no, and it's great an insight into not for the people that are seeking jobs, but also
Yeah.
for the ones that are offering. Especially when you said you have to understand why you're hiring. I think some maybe it's a crucial question that I think maybe in some
Yeah.
cases people don't think about it.
Yeah.
So no, thank you for explaining even in general lines how it goes. And since we are talking about how, I want to cover now the skills, the set skills for a revenue management role. We're
Sure.
talking about job descriptions. You
Yeah. Yeah.
mentioned it. So this is like the main questions today. What are hotels looking for nowadays when they are looking for a revenue manager?
Sure. Sure. I mean, it's one of those where I can come at this from obviously what my clients are looking for, right?
Sure.
Um, and of course, we go to various events and we hear about the developments of what we're looking for as an industry. But again, coming at it from what my clients are looking for, of course, it goes without saying, we need that highly capable analytical professional. We need that data analysis. We need that problem solving mindset. But I think what we're seeing more and more is revenue managers need to have that wider commercial understanding. And this is something that we've been talking about for some time. I think if I mentioned anything like we need to break the silos down, I think people would start commenting, really, really, because I think we've touched on this so much that I don't even want to go down that road. But I think mentioning that wider commercial understanding is so important for a revenue manager in the market that we find ourselves in now. And what I mean by that is understanding the the process, but also understanding the pain points of what marketing, sales, and e-commerce are looking at. Okay, and they need to work collaboratively with them. They need to be able to be that commercial head to sit in my opinion, sit within those functions and understand how we optimize as a whole. Okay, so revenue management, in my opinion, arguably is again, I know I'm biased here. Arguably is the one to sit within the middle of those commercial functions. Generally speaking, it's always been finance, and I completely understand why that would be. But I think we are realizing more and more why revenue management should be sat in that hot seat. And again, if you work within revenue management, I have no doubt you probably agree with me. If you don't, you may disagree, of course. Um, but we're also seeing, again, we're also seeing this stakeholder management skill set. So I touched on it a moment ago, but and again, this is something we've talked about for a long time, but revenue management needs to be able to influence. They need to be able to get that buy-in. They could have the best strategy in the world, but if they can't get the buy-in, if they can't communicate it effectively, it's not going to happen. And I think that's something that we've been missing for so long, and something that is now again at the top of our clients' lists. They treat it as a given that, of course, these people are going to be highly analytical and commercially minded.
Mhm.
If you're not that,
Yeah.
you're in the wrong function. But I think that communication skill now is by far the most requested skill set. So so anyone that's watching this, if that's something that you're in revenue management, you feel you might be lacking, or something that you are desperately trying to work on, I would definitely suggest to find ways of being able to develop your soft skills and your stakeholder management skill set. And not just at your mid level, but I would say across all levels. You being able to present in a room of very commercially astute individuals and be able to drive a strategy is going to be the difference between you and someone else getting that job. It's as simple as that. Um, Another thing that our clients are a lot more focused on now, now I'm thinking about it, Paula, is the tech side of things. So
Mhm.
very recently, uh, probably over the last 3 or 4 jobs that we've filled, there's been a question over candidates that have just always had available to them sophisticated tech stacks, sophisticated systems.
Mhm.
And the question keeps coming up. It's just something I've just realized now, but because I had it in the last job that I just filled, is the client was saying, look, I want someone that's come from a manual environment. And what I mean by that, again, for anybody listening that isn't within revenue management, A manual environment is where they're using something like Excel to manually
Mhm.
create your strategy or manually understand that data, right? And so on.
Yeah.
Rather than using a sophisticated system, RMS and so on, where they're able to utilize that system to be able to solve those problems without having the fundamental skill set to do it. Now, of course, and I'm a massive believer in this, of course, sophisticated systems are there as a tool to help you achieve the
Yeah.
certain goals. But what our clients seem to be wanting are people that have they can absolutely use those systems. That's absolutely fine. But I want people that have actually had the experience of being in a manual environment. Whether that will continue to be a trend, I don't know. But it seems to be a request from the last few jobs that we filled. So
Oh.
that's a pretty interesting one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That was sorry, I interrupted, but I was not expecting that. I thought it would be actually
I
the other way around.
honestly, so it's what we do have is some clients saying, we're looking for candidates to have experience in a very particular system because, of
Yeah.
course, that might be just what their group of
Yeah.
hotels use. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
But that one, as I say, it was a bit an unusual one because we've just seen this sort of slight uplift in requests for have they got manual experience or are they currently working in a manual environment. And again, one of the clients that I'm speaking about, they don't currently have an RMS in place. So that'll be one reason for them. But
Yeah.
another one, they do, but they found that they really like and well, the candidates seem to embed better when they've come from that manual environment. There you go.
Yeah.
Bit of an
Yeah.
interesting one.
Well, maybe they think like someone who is doing themselves all the reports and stuff have more
Maybe.
confidence in the analytic than one that is
Yeah.
just kind of following. I guess that's the
There,
thought
there's
behind. I don't
certainly
know.
yeah, there's certainly a question mark there. And the last one, if it sort of it leads on from that actually,
Sure.
is we're seeing a rise in the desire for candidates to have a wider and deeper understanding of data analysis and data visualization. So using tools such as Tableau, Python, Power BI, all these things. We're starting to see a lot more of that now. That could be because of the wider commercial data analysis side of things. And again, we do work on those roles, but I've had a number of candidates actually studying or getting certified in these areas to make themselves more desirable for clients going forward. So that's certainly an area that seems to be something that people are focusing more and more on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We are already heading to the end of the show. I cannot believe it because I just have I have like 20 follow up. I have 20 follow up
That's
questions
deep.
from what you said. Yeah, yeah, no. Seriously, we're gonna have to do a chapter 2 of this. But but I think it was like I mean, you said many interesting things, Tom. But just going back, you did mention the like soft skill
Yeah,
requirement because of course I think in our heads or at least my head that it's not so into the world of revenue management. I would say that revenue managers are more analytical than a spokesperson
yeah,
per se. So I think that's a very good tip that you're giving and a very good point that you're doing, especially because as you're saying too, the role is changing and it's more, commercial,
yeah,
not so much your own little world with analysis. My follow-up question on regarding this in the role itself,
yeah,
um, you did mention, but it is different, right? Like a revenue manager in depending on the size of the property or the
yeah,
structure. I'm guessing, like I think you mentioned, like even the manual skill that you were mentioned before. I guess
yeah.
it also depends on what the hotel has to offer. Let's say for the
Absolutely.
person.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those where that is very contingent on the type of business, the type of environment, the investment that that company has had in that tech space. Because if it's next to nothing, then of course
Yeah.
that's why, right? So there's lots of factors that come into that. And again, we were going through sort of more generalist what people are looking for and what we're seeing. But again, yes, you're absolutely right. It all depends on the environment. It depends on what they're stepping into. It depends on their full understanding. And again, how complex the revenue management is. Because, in many different environments, that revenue management piece is going to be very different in complexity, if they're single property, what's the size of that single property? What's the M&E side of things? Are they involved in F&B? Is it total RM? There's so many facets and sort of variables to that. But at the end of the day, it's one of those where it just depends on what that environment is and what they're looking for from a candidate. Because the remit of the revenue manager arguably doesn't look anything like what it did 10 years ago,
Yeah.
especially after obviously the circumstances we've had over the last few years.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we are heading to the end. I just want to say, first of all, thanks to everybody on the chat. I could not read everyone, but I see the people from Mexico, Latin, Afghanistan,
In,
Thailand, everybody. Like, thank you so much for interacting with us. I want to give also a spoiler. If you like this topic, recruitment and gap between talent and technology, we will launch tomorrow our next podcast episode with Laurie Q. She is the vice president of revenue management at Pyramid Global Hospitality, and she does talk about her own experience in revenue management and
Amazing.
how she before management was not even like a full time job. It was like something that a GM would do, and she as a GM would do it, and now evolve. So this is a very good conversation, and I think it's a good add to this is one that we're having now, Tom. And before we go, I also want to mention that you were in the Global Revenue Forum, right, Tom? That just happened in London. I know you were a sponsor speaker, and I also saw on LinkedIn that you released a white paper about revenue management. So, what can you
Yeah.
tell us quickly about it, and how can people get it?
Hey, there we go. So the white paper that we launched at the Global Revenue Forum, big shout out and thank you to Ali for allowing us to do that. It's the white paper itself is after a 2-year study of where the industry's at with meetings and events revenue management. We brought together it was actually 30 industry leaders total over a 2-year period to come up with suggestions of what we need to do to transform the way we attack or deal with meetings and events revenue management. So this was the first edition of that paper. You can download it on our website for a £1 donation that goes to our foundation. And that foundation actually provides funding for people to complete their accreditations through the Revenue Academy, so Revenue by Design, their revenue management certification, or through HOSPA and their revenue management certification as well. So that £1 actually goes back into the industry to create more amazing revenue management leaders going forward. So you can download it. It's a brilliant paper. It's not written by me, so full transparency. I brought the experts together. It's the experts that have put this together. And really exciting, Paula, to end on is we're
Yeah,
continuing. There will be a second part to this paper, and we're
nice.
actually our next commercial leadership event is this Thursday with another 20 industry leaders coming together. But now we're deep diving and finding the actionable changes that we can do as an industry. So it's so exciting, so exciting.
Oh, that's so nice. Very interesting, and I love how much you do for the industry as a whole and the
Thank you.
education part. So I really appreciate it. So that's it for today, everyone. That was a great conversation. I said in the beginning that it would be. So thank you so much, Tom, for being here today and taking the
Thank
time to
you.
talk to me.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much,
much.
Paula. It's great to be here.
Thanks everyone who's watching us today. Please stay tuned for our next episode and don't forget to follow Cloudbeds on LinkedIn. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.